عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. واشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. My dear brothers and sisters, forgive me, my mind is not fully there. I have not had much sleep last night, unfortunately, as I'm sure for many of you that has been the case, especially those with family in the Middle East, in Palestine. It has been a very difficult period, but Allahul Musta'an. We will continue to work as hard as we can, and we will speak in this khutbah about what we can do as a community to stand up for justice and to push back against what is a monopoly of injustice that we are seeing right now in this situation. As you know, myself and others in the community who are activists, I work for the Council on American Islamic Relations in Chicago, CARE Chicago, a civil rights organization. We've been busy around the clock trying to push back against the backlash that has occurred because of the situation happening in the Middle East. Let's go back a little bit, talk about what's happening, talk about what we can do about it as Muslims. I want to begin by reminding us of three important concepts that are central to the Islamic creed. The first is Islam itself and what that truly means. Because all of this needs to be contextualized anytime we face any crisis and in general. These are the three concepts that are the guiding principles, the guiding light of every Muslim. We believe and we say in the adhan and we say in every salah, Allahu Akbar. What does that mean? People say it means God is great. That's not the literal translation of Allahu Akbar. People then say Allah is the greatest. That is the functional meaning, but it's not the literal meaning of Allahu Akbar. So what does Allahu Akbar mean literally? It means Allah is greater. Because if I were to say Allahu Kabir, that's Allah is great. Allahu Al-Akbar, that is Allah is the greatest. But here, the conjugation in Arabic is very interesting. It is Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater. Because it's a living statement, you fill in the gaps. Allah is greater than. Allah is greater than any illness you may have that you think is so great. Any loss you may have that you think is so great and hard to deal with. Any trouble, any financial loss, any marital trouble, any societal trouble, anything, good or bad, Allah is greater than it. It's a living statement that stays with us. We always fill that statement. It's not a period. It's open line. When we say Allah is greater, something is understood from that. If you truly believe God is greater than any challenge, any calamity, any trial or tribulation, then you have little to worry about. I didn't lose sleep because I don't trust in Allah, just because we're working long hours. But at any moment, my heart is happy, it's strong, it's secure in the knowledge that Allah is greater than anything. That is what brings security to the heart of a mu'min. Because when you believe Allah is greater than anything, you understand. We have a will. I wish for this to happen. I wish for that to happen in my personal life, in my community life, in my ummah. And Allah allows something perhaps different to happen. If it isn't my will, it isn't someone else's, it's God's. No one can will except if Allah wills. And so here comes the point of Islam. What does it truly mean? It doesn't mean, as we say in English, submission. Submission has an element of coercion. Someone is pushing you to do something. It doesn't mean surrender. That's even worse. It's like hands up, surrender. Islam means acceptance. There is the notion of willful movement towards God. You accept. You accept this truth that Allah is greater than anything. That acceptance is a form of it's a mental state, it's an emotional state. Before you do any actions, before you have any rules or fiqh or sharia or dietary rules or clothing rules, the very beginning is a mental state. Allah is greater than anything, and I accept this fact, and I accept God as the one, Allah is the one true God, master of the universe. Now it doesn't stop there. There's a higher level of that mental state. Then comes Iman. And here we say Iman means belief or faith. It's not the best translation of Iman. If we say Iman means the belief in the one God or the existence of God, then guess who's a mu'min by that definition? Iblis, the devil. Wala'udhu billah. The devil knows God exists. The devil confirms the existence of God. He communicated with God. He knows God. He doesn't deny the existence of God. So it's not the meaning of Iman. Iman is trust in God. Trust in God. Now, obviously, to trust in God, you have to acknowledge God's existence. So it is part of that translation that you believe in the one God, but it goes further for you and me to trust in God's will. So first we accept God's will. That's one level. We accept that God is supreme and His will is supreme. But a higher level is to trust in that will as being good for us, whether we know it or not, whether we see it or not. To give a crude example, and this is an example, and there's nothing unto God, nothing can be exemplified onto God. But if I were to tell my son, you're grounded, he has two options at first. He can rebel and say, I'm not listening to you, I'm not going to my room, or he can accept and go to his room. But then there's a higher level. He can accept going to his room. The lower level would be, I accept, but this shouldn't happen. But I accept, I'm doing it. Or a higher level could be, I accept and my heart is at ease because I know my Father knows what's best for me. And what he's asking me to do right now must be good for me in some way. Iman is not just acceptance at this point. That's why it's higher than Islam. Iman is now trusting that what is happening is in God's great wisdom, good in some way. And it is our role now to respond the way God ordered and commanded us to respond, and not to worry about outcomes, not to worry about God's domain. The problem with us humans, we always concern ourselves with God's domain. Who's going to Jannah? Who's going to Nar or Jahannam? Why this happened? Why this didn't happen? This calamity, this earthquake, this cancer for this person. Never question God's will. God is the most wise, the most seeing. We only worry about our area that Allah has delegated to us, and that is how we respond to whatever it is that Allah willed. That's the point of life. Who said this life is going to be perfect from our point of view? This is not Jannah. This life will have death and destruction. It will have earthquakes and wars. It will have disease and financial loss. It will have divorces and all sorts of crime and this and that. But in every case, Allah has willed that it be this way. In His great wisdom, you know the story of Musa and Khidr and what happened. I won't go through that now. But in every case, in every calamity, there was some wisdom that even Musa, at the zenith, at the height of his professorship, of his tenure as a prophet, he was schooled by someone Allah sent to remind him, it isn't ilm and knowledge that gets you there. It is submission and iman that allows you to see what is beyond the eyes. And so here we say, now what? Allah then delegated to us, He said, this is the world, this is what happens. Your job is not to worry about why or how. Your job is how you react to it, how you respond to it. That's what I judge you on. That's the point of life. That is where victory or loss or defeat is. That is where salvation or lack thereof is. And here we come to the third concept, and now mind you, that is the first one in which action comes in. So you have Islam is the mental and heart. So is Iman. That's where it starts, and that's why we can never ignore the mind and the heart. The first two levels of our very identity are rooted there. And once we have those clear, and this is where reflection and contemplation exist, that's why the importance of the commandments of the Quran, الذين يفقهون الذين يعقلون الذين يبصرون الذين يسمعون أولو الألباب, those who think, those who ponder, those who contemplate, those who see, those who hear, those who have minds. Allah addresses us through the faculties that He has given us, the greatest gifts that allow us. This is the space in which Islam and Iman occur first. And now the third level, action begins, ihsan. And then ihsan now, once you understand the way the world is built, our place in it, now what do? Ihsan. We try to do our utmost, our best in all that we do for the sake of Allah. We worship God as if we see Him. Because if we don't see Him, He sees us. Ihsan means that now that you are addressing Allah and Allah alone, if you're going to do a job, do it to the best of your ability. Not beyond. Allah does not burden you with what is beyond your capacity. All of these are Muslim lessons from the Quran itself. If you're going to worship, there's two ways. Your mind can be somewhere else. Your movements can be sloppy. You could be thinking about your shopping list or the last results of a sports game. Or your mind and your heart could be in the prayer. Your wudu, the best way you can. Your motions, respectful, firm. And you're cleaning your soul. It's a meditative exercise. There's ihsan in that process. There can be ihsan in how you give charity. Mindlessly, little crunching on the calculator, you drop it off, that's not ihsan. Check a box, give from the excess, or you can put your heart and mind in it. You can feel the pain of those who have lost something, those who have something less than you, and to engage your soul in that process of wanting to reach out beyond your comfort zone and giving from that which you love. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will not achieve true birr unless you give from that which you love. Not from only the excess, but from the substance. That is ihsan. How you treat your wife, your husband, how you treat your children, your teacher, your parents, your community members, your imam, your students, in every human interaction, the stranger, the traveler, the poor, the matraba, the one who's traveling or is on the street homeless. How we treat humans there can be ihsan in that. That becomes a lifestyle rooted in Islam and Iman. And those three together are the crux of this faith, my friends, of this religion. Before we go into the 5 pillars, before we go into how we pray, how many times, before we get into the ilm and the kutub and the books and the madhahib and all the stuff that keeps a lot of people busy, and they're important. But let's not forget the foundation upon which all is built. That is what defines this community. That is what brings us in one room, first and foremost, in all our different shades of skin, places of birth, nationalities and tongues. What makes us one ummah is that mentality and that excellence of implementation of that mentality. And so now, as we are confronted with these catastrophes, and there are many, we're seeing the rise of the Hindutva, RSS extremism in India and even here in the United States. And my office, CARE Chicago, was just involved in some major work trying to push back against the consequences of this extremist, hateful agenda. Right here in our backyard, we're seeing that. Natural calamities like the earthquake in Afghanistan, which unfortunately has been forgotten in the middle of all the other big stories happening, but thousands of people have been killed almost instantly in that earthquake, and other earthquakes that followed. And of course, the one piece of news that is now dominating much of our minds, rightfully so, the situation in Gaza. And again, I say without any hesitation that as a Muslim, and this is me speaking, I do not stand for the targeting of civilians, period. This is my Islamic religious values. It's not a PR talking point. Having said this clearly, what I'm seeing is a lack of that same sentiment from the other side. In all of the one-sided statements that have been put out by politicians, local and federal, in all of the media coverage, local and national, I have not seen the sentiment reciprocated. I have not seen care for civilians and the lives of civilians when they are Palestinian, when they are from Gaza, when they are Muslim. And at the same time that I see this hypocrisy, I see our community being demonized while we're the ones who had the clarity, the moral clarity to state our position, and the other side, those who are against justice and peace, are the ones beating their chests and yelling at the top of their voices, I stand with, for example, Israel. When you say that, I say to them, be careful what you say you stand for. Because right now, what is happening from the state of Israel in Gaza can only be described as war crimes. We are seeing a humanitarian crisis unfold. Imagine a strip of land that is shut off from all sides. And this isn't new, but it's happening now in a stronger way. For years, this has been the case. And let's remember, the situation that is happening there, the injustices are borne out, the root causes, occupation and oppression. Don't let anybody confuse you as to the sources of the problem there. And those began in 1948, not in 1987, many decades later when Hamas was formed. To try to put this on one group that I don't support, but that exists and is not the beginning or the end of this conflict. Quite clearly, is a distraction intended to reduce this very complex and real conflict into this talking point in order to render it without credibility. We do not fall for that. We remind, for the sake of justice, for the sake of clarity, for the sake of truth, this isn't a talking point. This isn't a debate for the heck of it. This is about truth and justice. This conflict existed for decades. Occupation is the root of it. Oppression is the root of it. Displacement is the root of it. Stealing land, grabbing land, pushing people out, killing people with impunity, settler violence, military violence, whatever resistance the Palestinians have put forth, and they're entitled to it, has only been deemed as terroristic, whereas all of the other forms of violence and dispossession and displacement and oppression have been deemed as security, national security. That double standard exists. In the context of all of this, we have what is happening now, and this Gaza Strip, which is essentially already a prison for those who have been displaced from other parts of Palestine. The ones who are in Gaza are mostly refugees from other places, cooped up in this essentially largest open-air prison on planet Earth. And after they've lived for generations now under these conditions, unlivable conditions, now they're completely shut off. Water is being shut off. 2 million people in this little strip of land. Water is shut off. Food is shut off. Electricity is shut off. Medical equipment and human rights access is being shut off. And just yesterday, and this is part of the reason why I couldn't sleep last night, I made the mistake after a long day at work, coming home at night in my car, of turning on BBC Radio, and lo and behold, they announce an order for half the country, half of Gaza, to leave their homes within 24 hours or else. 1 million people are ordered to leave or else. To leave from the north, that's the entire north of the country, all of it, to the south. Can you imagine if one family, your family, my family, just imagine, is pushed out of their homes overnight, out into the cold, out into the streets? It's a catastrophe. Now imagine 1 million people in one day. Imagine the level of calamity, of human catastrophe. We don't need to imagine. The United Nations themselves, a neutral entity, threw its arms up and said, this is a human catastrophe. This is insane. But no one's listening. And unfortunately, our own government is supporting this with, I stand with, messages and one-sided statements, and $8 billion in funding that have been sent, and the largest warship ever created that's been sent. Mind you, the Gazans don't even have one warship, not one helicopter, not one plane, not one fighter jet, not one tank. And so you can see here what's going on. And in the middle of all this, and this brings us now to our local community here, there is a demonization and dehumanization campaign of Muslims in general that always comes with these types of flippant war crimes in order to justify them. And as a result, my office at CARE, we're seeing the largest number of complaints come to our office since the post-9/11 period, since 2003. And we put out a release about that. So what do we do with all of this? My brothers and sisters, we never lose principle under pressure. We stay principled as to our position on the sanctity of civilian life, regardless of who. Second, we do not fear anyone but God. There is a lot of pressure on all of us, at companies, those of us in the public limelight, at schools, to be quiet, to not speak up, to not say the right thing. We continue to speak up and say the right thing. We research. We ground our talking points in truth, not in emotion, as emotional as this is, but وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. My brothers, haqq doesn't just mean truth. It also means data, facts, verifiable pieces of information. That should be the nature of this community. It's in our Quran. Allah says that is your ally. And the other ally we say is sabr. Sabr doesn't just mean patience. Patience comes off as a passive thing. You're just you're waiting. That's not what patience means in the Quran. That's not what sabr means. Sabr means, yes, patience, but discipline, which means you move forward. You're not standing, but you're not rushing. You're not emotional. You're not tripping over your face. You're stern, and you're steady, and you're in it for the long haul, not the short haul. And so you're patient as you move, and you're disciplined, and you have a plan. Those two things, if you put them together, completely different understanding of these two simple ayahs, which Allah, the Creator, whom we trust in, has told us is the recipe of success. When we relinquish this recipe, we lose. Per Allah, not per Ahmad. When we abide by watawasaw with this recipe, we win. And so now we fact check. We put out factual information on social media. We follow the organizations who are putting out the talking points. We resonate. We amplify. We call those officials, few as they are, but they exist. I just got a call on my way here to the masjid on my cell phone from Illinois Secretary of State, Alexei Giannoulis, who said, Ahmed, listen, I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of your community. My heart goes out to you and your community. I just want to let you know that, man. We had a little conversation, he hung up. There are people who feel what you feel. Many. Some are not able to speak out publicly. We're working to change the environment so that there could be more courage and these sentiments can be more public. But at least know that your voices are being heard. The truth, the haqq, at the end, always comes to the fore. Always, in Allah's world, under God's justice, it's a matter of time. The only question, I'll close with this, the only question is whether you and I will be a part of it, of God's victory or not. God's victory will always be, meaning God's championing of the truth, of the weak, of the vulnerable, of the mazlumeen, those who have faced injustice. It will always come, have no doubt about it in your hearts. The only doubt you should have and I should have, but we have a decision to make, is whether we will be a part of that victory. And we can only do so if we have ihsan in standing up for justice, pushing back, and not being afraid. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم لعلكم تغفرون. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفر اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. My dear brothers and sisters, we do have with us here tonight, or this afternoon, Islamic Relief, a very trusted international organization that is collecting support for our families in Gaza. As you know, there are maybe 2,500 beds in the hospitals in Gaza. There are tens of thousands of people who are already injured. That number is expected to blow up even more. My doctor friends who are there are telling me that they are on the floor on the emergency rooms. No place for them to lie down on a bed. They're just in corridors and kitchens and bathrooms. One doctor who's Syrian said, look, I've been all over the world. I've been in every hotspot. This is the worst I've ever seen in my 12 years of service. We need to help these brothers and sisters with our money, with our support, those who are injured, those who are dying. Hundreds of women and children are dying. Thousands more are expected to in the coming period. Keep them in your dua, keep your activism strong, keep your faith strong, but also keep our support strong, inshallah. And lastly, at CARE Chicago, we work hard to try to continue to represent this community, sometimes against the waves. We need your support as well. Not today, let's keep it only for Gaza, but inshallah on October 29th, we just invite you to come to our banquet where we can have another, inshallah, strong himmat, as we say, to rise up together, prepare for the coming period as a community, all of us, inshallah. There are postcards on the table as you walk out. Just please make sure to grab one. No donations, just grab one and come to the banquet, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the clarity to follow the path of Islam, of Iman, of Ihsan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant reprieve to our brothers and sisters in Gaza and everywhere around the world who are suffering, all innocent human beings around the world, all Muslims around the world who are facing calamity. Ya Allah, Allahumma اغفر لنا ذنوبنا, اللهم كن معنا ولا تكن علينا, اللهم وفقنا إلى ما تحبه وترضاه, اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار, اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا, اللهم ارحمهما كما ربيانا صغيرا. اللهم يا رب العالمين انصر إخواننا في غزة وفي فلسطين وفي سوريا وفي العراق وفي يمن وفي كل مكان. اللهم انصر المظلومين يا رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر المرحومين يا رب العالمين. يا الله يا الله، اللهم كن مع أهل غزة يا الله. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. قوموا إلى صلاتكم. Just a quick announcement. If you are in the back and there's room to move forward, everybody please move forward, fill in the gaps. And if you are double parked, please make sure you remove your car or you leave as soon as the prayer is done and you remove your car as quickly as possible. جزاكم الله خير.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
استووا استقيموا واعتدلوا أتموا صفوفكم. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم وإن تطيعوا الله ورسوله لا يلتكم من أعمالكم شيئا إن الله غفور رحيم. إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون. قل أتعلمون الله بدينكم والله يعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض والله بكل شيء عليم. يمنون عليك أن أسلموا قل لا تمنوا علي إسلامكم بل الله يمن عليكم أن هداكم للإيمان إن كنتم صادقين. إن الله يعلم غيب السماوات والأرض والله بصير بما تعملون. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إن في ذلك لذكرى لمن كان له قلب أو ألقى السمع وهو شهيد. ولقد خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما في 6 أيام وما مسنا من لغوب فاصبر على ما يقولون وسبح بحمد ربك قبل طلوع الشمس وقبل الغروب ومن الليل فسبحه وأدبار السجود واستمع يوم ينادي المناد من مكان قريب يوم يسمعون الصيحة بالحق ذلك يوم الخروج. إنا نحن نحيي ونميت وإلينا المصير يوم تشقق الأرض عنهم سراعا ذلك حشر علينا يسير. نحن أعلم بما يقولون وما أنت عليهم بجبار فذكر بالقرآن من يخاف وعيد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As Brother Ahmed mentioned, if you are double parked, please kindly go outside and move your car and then come back in, inshallah, and join us. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed. I don't know where you are, but I encourage everyone to go home. Go and look up ICW Facebook Live if you're on your phone, if you have the app, or just Google it and it'll come up, and re-listen to this khutbah. I hope to do that, inshallah. I encourage everyone else to do that. If you have family members at home that weren't able to attend, re-listen to this khutbah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmad, you are a role model for us. You probably don't want me to say that, but you are a role model for us. May Allah bless you and your family. Some announcements, some very important announcements. First and foremost, tomorrow, inshallah, there will be a rally in downtown Chicago for Palestine, for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. It is at 2 p.m. in downtown Chicago at the corner of Michigan and Ida B. Wells Drive. For us old school people, Congress is Ida B. Wells, I believe. So Michigan and Congress is where the rally will begin. Here at ICW, we will have a bus that will depart and take everyone to the rally from here to downtown Chicago. We do encourage and ask everyone to register online. There is a link. If you need that link, see me. It is in the emails, the weekly emails that went out. It is out there as well too, to register and reserve a seat for the buses. I just checked before Salah, and I think that we have 100 seats and about 46 or 48 are accounted for, so 50% full roughly. So please come here. The departure time I believe is 1:15, so come here a little bit earlier. Join us and please support our brothers and sisters. So that's tomorrow, inshallah. The rally itself is at 2 p.m. The buses here will be departing around 1:15. Inshallah, on October 20th, we will have a program here, so that's next Friday. In partnership with Pure Hands here at ICW, our khatib will be from Pure Hands, and in the evening we will have dinner and a program. The topic is loving the beloved. So please join us for that. Inshallah, next Saturday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, October 21st, the girls' pool party, all ages, sisters only, girls only, at the Bartlett Aquatic Center. It's $10 per person, and registration it needs to be done prior to that. Our weekly programs are ongoing. The Quran Institute is in progress right now with Sheikh Hassan. We will have our Ask Me Anything program tonight. Don't forget about our soccer programs and all of the various educational programs that are offered through Itqan Academy. Last but not least, as Brother Ahmad mentioned, CARE will be having their fundraising dinner on October 29th. Please pick up a postcard and attend and support that wonderful organization. Also, Masjid Uthman will be selling tickets for their fundraising, and that's on November 4th. Please support ICW. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.